curious how this translates or has translated all into Nozzle Forward and what you do with Nozzle Forward. Are these, can you kind of elaborate on that for me?
Yeah, I mean, the cadre that I work with is no longer a teaching group. They are without a doubt, outside of my wife and kids and my parents, the most important people to me, because we've done all this work. We've had these difficult conversations. We've had corrective conversations that go both directions, and it's always been had with the dignity and respect. And the mission-driven approach to life plays out in the fire service. Human beings need a mission. They need something that they're working towards. It's not what's easy, it's what's right. And so the mission for the Nozzle Forward has always been to teach ourselves out of teaching. And we don't do any advertising and all that stuff. It's all word of mouth. But what has happened is the conversations that we have are real. They're substantial. And, we make fun of each other when we're tired on the airplanes and all that stuff that you're supposed to do. But we're capable of having difficult conversations. And from that has come this pursuit of reality rather than fairy tale. And we are working towards being able to present something in a way that isn't geographically biased, that it works because it's the principle, not, is the house got cedar shake or that stuff doesn't matter, which is what largely our industry concerns itself. What does it look like instead of what is it? And so, within our own group, we refer to ourselves as one of the guys that teaches with me, his name is Hans Christensen. And one of the things he likes to refer to is his sister is the smart one. And she's a doctor of some sort. Her husband is another doctor. And he was talking to her, and I'm paraphrasing Hans because it's just so articulate. And he's like, what makes your industry different? He's like, well, first off, we refer to what we do as a practice. And I think there's perspective in that. And so we have, before this came to included in our perspective, we referred to ourselves as a think tank. Think tanks aren't locked into dogma. Think tanks are looking to dissect and decode what's going on. And that's how it's happened. We can have conversations that are fairly complex with simple words. We're doing a training in my own agency just recently for some upcoming in-service. One of the guys says, oh man, I really wish you laid out your videos so that it was more, you could see the map of where you're, and we do on some. But what he was missing was, and his comment was, and I get what he was saying, he's a good dude, but he was like, you guys are getting so much out of this, like your conversations. And I'm like, right, you can't discuss surgery with someone that hasn't taken biology 101 yet. Right. So yes, that's right. And what you're right. You aren't getting it all. And the whole point of apprenticing is to learn how to see it all through people that can. So, that whole thing, we're able to have some very deliberate conversations that are, and at this point, because the thing was started by me, it's my name's often put up, which I don't like, because I've learned from Jordan, I've learned from Nate, I've learned from Brendan, from Lujan, from Kat Knowles, from Maggie Blackwood, all the people that have taught with me. It's equal exchange back and forth. And I'm not trying to maintain superiority by making it technically more complicated. I'm trying to get a functioning team by making it technically less complicated. And so over the course of our existence, these conversations have taken a program that fundamentally taught the same thing 13 years ago. Well, it's teaching it way better today. And if it wasn't, well, then shame on us. So that's how it plays off.
That's great. I mean, I think that's the goal of any business, is to get better, right? And to remain flexible and adaptable. And I think sometimes that's where, in departments that are kind of dogmatic, that's where they get hung up. Like that's where they need to let go of a little bit and
well, and if you, yeah, I'm sorry. I mean,
yeah, no, go ahead.
The this is how we have isn't, and this is a new way to do it, isn't saying you were doing it wrong.
Yeah.
We start fires with other things than friction. It's still right. Like when you're camping, you don't have to bang rocks together. So anyway, yeah, I don't understand what people are afraid of. I think that trying new things there's 3 outcomes. First outcome is wholesale adoption. And if the mission is serving the public, well, wholesale adoption, if you can quantify why it improves your procedures, not just because somebody said so, you have data, well, then wholesale adoption makes you better. Wholesale rejection, it doesn't work for us, not for everyone, for us. Well, it doesn't work. Your understanding of what you do is stronger because you've then the more likely, which is a hybrid. This part works, this part doesn't. In all cases, it makes you better. So there's no point in which learning something is detrimental. So yeah.
I've heard you say before, I would love to get your opinion to kind of go off on a little bit of a tangent here. There's a lot of hype around wellness, and wellness is kind of the theme of this platform and the theme of the conference that I had, and there's lots
which was fantastic, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. There's a lot of buzzwords around wellness, but then not a lot of action. And so I'm kind of curious of what your whole perspective on, resilience in the fire service and what that actually looks like beyond this fancy language that everyone's using.
Years better than it was when I came in. My first officer was a fantastic guy and ended his career but had done this job aggressively for quite 3 decades at that point, and he was a little what we would recognize today as PTSD. He worked through it. It ended up really great for him. He kind of ended with the enthusiasm that he started with, but with the wisdom of all those runs. But so I'm really pleased that we're having these conversations. I do think we have to remember that these conversations aren't the mission, and that we need to take care of ourselves, and it's okay to take a knee if you need time. It's okay to recognize it, and we need to have infrastructure that allows this. At the same time, part of me scratches my head and wonders, like, what did people think they were getting into? Like, you're going to have a 6% higher cancer rate. Certain cancers are caused by this job. But if you look at the total numbers, the last time I checked, we were about 6%. Now, what causes those cancers? That's where our language comes in. It's not largely, the smoke is definitely a contributor. But what we know from studies now is that it's actually the water repellent that's in our bunker gear in Class A foams, right? So that's the leading cause. And so we need to be able to have those conversations and all that. But I didn't come into this job thinking I wasn't going to see misery, that I wasn't going to operate in an uncomfortable space that was not beneficial to my well-being. And now I have a hypothesis, and purely hypothesis, purely observation, and a little bit of reading. But I was on duty. I had just started. I was on duty on the line on 9/11. And I think part of the problem comes back to our language, and people have heard me talk about this before, but this concept of heroism. We reacted to those people as heroes. But the problem with that is that the definition of hero is you win. You're successful. Rambo, Die Hard, Captain Kirk, every myth that we have facilitates a spunky rebellion against the evil overlord. You're outgunned, you're out equipped, but it's your manifest destiny of righteousness that makes you succeed. So what I think happened is a bunch of people came in, and we told them, they came in thinking they were going to be heroes because that's what they saw when they were a kid. And now they've been on the job a little while, and they're realizing that they might die early because they're not getting sleep. They might get divorced 3 times because they're not being deliberate. They might have something fall on them, or they might fall through. And you can't manage risk from fear. You manage it from confidence and caution. So I think what we've done is we're creating this platform that is needed, but we have to be sure that that pendulum doesn't swing so far that we go from public servant to public. We have to have avenues that allow us to take care of our people so that they can remain in a capacity of being functional, and that it's good for them. At the same time, you can't come into this job and think you're not going to have bad shit happen. Bad shit is the definition of this job, right? And I think that sometimes I'm noticing people that are on occasion, not always, but on occasion, they're taking the grace that's being given today that's never been given before, and they're taking advantage of it, which is discrediting. It's like crying wolf. It's discrediting the people who really need it. And we need to create systems from day one that teaches people to deal with this. We need to create the identification of what this looks like. But we aren't psychiatrists. We're not psychologists. So what we need to be is good friends and say, hey, buddy, something's going on. And if you just want to have a chat, we can do that. If you need to take a break and go get some help, I'm going to help you do that. But I'm not qualified to get into deep, emotional conversation. I don't have that tool set. So, yeah, I think that's it. I think the sum total of it is identify the problem and work. And that plays true on a technical and an emotional level. The same principle reapplied.
Yeah. What do you do to stay well, Aaron? What fills you up when you're feeling depleted?
Work. Work does. And then for me, I have hold on a second. There's the Kraken hat. Wait a minute. You can't ask me to be fiscal. Fiscal. Look at that. See, my first club was the Canucks. So I can't change this. I love them both. So I'm wearing the Canuck hat now. Okay. But I work and then silence. Like music is equally weighted on the silence as it is to the sound. And people do so many things that they don't focus on. They don't prioritize. When I'm at home, my mission is my family. When I'm at work, my mission primarily is my work and my people. And people are always more important than paper. And the investment in people through time, which is the only real asset that we have that is not renewable, is the greatest investment we can make as humans, because we're investing in something that, if invested in, exponentially more impact maker, versus ignoring and putting our money into stuff and programs when we need to be putting our money and our time into people. So whatever I'm doing is my focus. And then when I'm done doing that, and move on to something else. So I don't multitask because all the brain science in my experience has shown that multitasking is ineffective and solo tasking is effective. So that's what I do. I commit to what I'm doing. I commit to work, and I also give myself a break. And, you know, examples of that is I have just shy of 6 acres in the woods with a cabin in it there. The other one is I control my time, and this is something that you found out, which is every week there's 2 hours, 3 days a week, which I will look at my email. Because my email, if I looked at it every time something came in, that's all I would do. I would do all the other stuff piss poor because I'd be stopping halfway through. So, you know, I control those things, and I control the amount of time in the spaces in which the energy goes out. And when it's solo, it's the rest of the note. So yeah, that's what I do. I articulate things. I don't live in my own mind. I think about things and then I talk with other people.
That's great. I love that.
Without being defensive, like without being, oh, you either think I'm right or I don't want to talk. Oh no, did I fuck that one up? You totally fucked that one up, Fields. Like, all right, yeah, fair enough. So,
thank you for encapsulating that. And what would you like to leave kind of our viewers with today? A resource, you know, kind of reflects what we've talked about, and link for them.
I think that the mark of one of the key factors to success in any arena is intellectual curiosity. The other one is that we talk in the modern world, and this is problematic in the fire service, but about pushing. That discipline isn't an external factor. Discipline is an internal code of what is acceptable. And disciplined people do what's the best choice, which is often uncomfortable when no one's looking. The other one is, you know, I've had this conversation multiple times in the last 6 months, which is proving to me that there's a new phase that we're moving into, which is leadership isn't a push. Leadership is a pull. And if you want people to follow a certain behavior pattern, then you have to exhibit it. You have to do it first and make it culturally acceptable. There's and when I started kind of articulating that, as I was rereading one. I don't watch a lot of television. I read a lot, and I'm a big history fan. There's an old, he's dead now, but he's an American historian by the name of Stephen Ambrose. And the thing that made his books so phenomenal was he was a gifted writer and an amazing historian. And his ability to not compromise the realities while summarizing the events is just phenomenal. One of the books I read was Band of Brothers, which then became an HBO miniseries. And they had a company officer by the name of Winters. And at one point, the summation of what leadership is in all aspects is they're behind a berm in which the Germans are on the other side. And he says charge, and nobody moves. And then he racks his weapon, jumps up, and starts going. And everybody falls. But Venturi is what leadership is. It's not pushing, it's pulling. And I think if everyone worried less about impacting the world and just managed themselves, it would be a better space. So many in the fire service, so many people come to me and I want to have an impact. What should I do? And I'm like, I don't know, because I never wanted to have an impact. I didn't want to die. And the impact is because I'm not, if there is one, it's not because I wanted to do that. It's because I'm just doing what I do and it's become really acceptable. So in some places. So as far as books go, I'm for the fire service. I think there's for training and things like that. I think that there's a series of books. Fitzposner, Human Performance, 1967, is a really good breakdown of how to break down your or breakdown. That's a terrible. It's not a pop log, but it is a real nice summary of how to organize training. The Dreyfus model. There's a documentary on the Rubik's Cube and Rubik's Cube kids that I think are phenomenal because that's how we make decisions. Our algorithms are not linear; they're priority probability based. I think that there's a really good book that everybody should read if they're making decisions, which is called Normal Accidents. It's very difficult to read, but it talks about this guy studies, he's an academic that studies risk and performance and risk. And I think that's a great one because now we realize that we don't need equipment that does 6 things because we can't track 6 things. I think there's a great book on what's it called? Dreyfus Fitz. I think another one which didn't quote. I mean, the most unstoic thing you can do is quote Stoic philosophy on Facebook. I think it's very ironic to me that that's what's happening. People putting Stoic sayings on T-shirts. So, and the whole point of the Stoic statements isn't the statement; it's the sum total of the statement. So I think right now there's a really good. I read my first excerpt from Meditations by Marcus Aurelius when I was like 11. My parents. Right now, there's a translation of that sure there's other ones out there that are equally good, but for me, right now, the coolest one out there is the one by, I think his name is Barry Smith, and he translates it, and it's fantastic. I think that's a big one. I'm reading one right now that was given to me by a friend out of Lethbridge called Do Hard Things. I think that's a good one. Fire service wise, there's several books out there. I would highly recommend for not necessarily always the methodology, but and these are people I know and I trust. So I want to say that this isn't unbiased. Read a lot of stuff, but Jim McCormack out of Fire Department Training Network publishes these small books, and I have found them to consistently be some of the best resources out there because they are devoid of commercial input. These guys are, and a couple of them are mentors of mine. It's phenomenal. Another one that's available on the website through us is written by one of my co-instructors by the name of Jordan Legan. And I think this book, I'm predicting that Legan will be the firefighter that rewrites the standards for building construction as we understand it. He doesn't want to hear that, but I'm convinced that that's going to be the case. And he did his master's thesis in architecture on wayfinding and smoke. And that's what it's called, and it's available. You can find it. It's the one thing about all these is if you're going to quote them, you got to cite them, right? For the people out there, you have to do academic style citing because if not, it's illegal and it's plagiarism and it's disingenuous. You have to cite your sources. So cite the sources, but Legan's wayfinding and smoke really takes what we do with the rule of threes and builds on it, and then includes some behavioral science into, finding our way around inside these buildings by first articulating what makes up these buildings. I think in the last few years, he's a friend of mine. He's like my younger brother. But I think it's one of the best documents produced because it too is for it's not a bunch of buzzwords. It's not commercially vested. There was a comment by somebody that we know is funny. He's like, "Oh, dude, your book was great, but I had to look some words." And you're like, right, because he's writing for academics, not your 8th grade education, right? So it's written for another industry other than ours with the intent of being used in ours. So I think it's one of the, it's a fantastic thing. A lot more of these work. We all operate under the umbrella. So those are things right now that I think are good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that aren't totally niche.
Niche.
Yeah.
Niche. Yeah. Fantastic. We'll link the majority of those links below the video as you're watching this. And thank you so much, Aaron, for just your wealth of wisdom, your insights, your vulnerability today. And
I appreciate the fact that what you're doing is not a stereotype. I appreciate the fact that you're trying to contribute to our industry through things that we typically have as a blind spot. And so our conversations are always refreshing because too often I get asked, "Hey dude, hey bro, what kind of nozzle do you like?" Really, we're gonna have this conversation again? Like, I like Adidas. What do you like? I like Nike. I got patches that say I'm in the Nike cartel or whatever. It's like it's acid. You have to be able to have articulate conversations that aren't started with the statement, "Bro." That is the mark of a dumbass fire statement that's coming. Person says, "Bro," some goofiness is about to come out. It's at least, I don't know if it's causation or correlation, but I think it's both. So I always appreciate questions that approach things from different. As far as, it's nice of you to say so, but I don't know if it's wisdom. I think it is perspective, and that's what we're supposed to be sharing with conversation, is perspective.
Totally. I
make
agree.
A bunch of it.
You and I think we could chat for hours about some of this stuff. But again, thank you for joining us. And if anyone that is still watching, if you've made it to the end here, if you have any questions, comments, just want to reach out. My door is always open to you as well at info@firepowerx.com. And in the meantime, yes, thanks for watching. And Aaron, again, thanks for joining us. And we will see you all at the next conversation.